The rain started just after midnight, tapping softly against the windows of the small house in Portland. Emily Carter woke briefly when thunder rolled across the sky. But exhaustion pulled her back into sleep before she could even open her eyes fully. She had worked 2 shifts again. Life had become a cycle of long hours, unpaid bills, and quiet loneliness ever since her husband Daniel passed away 3 years earlier. Grief had not left her. It had only learned to sit silently beside her, down the hallway. A light flickered on. 16-year-old Ryan Carter stood in the kitchen, staring at a letter in his hands. His fingers trembled slightly as he read it again, even though he already knew every word. He looked toward his mother's bedroom door. "She deserves more than this," he whispered to himself. Ryan had grown up fast after his father died. While other teenagers worried about parties and sports, he worried about rent notices and his mother's tired smile. He noticed things Emily thought she hid well, the way she counted coins before grocery shopping, the night she skipped dinner, claiming she wasn't hungry, the quiet crying she thought no one heard. Tonight, everything was about to change. Earlier that evening, Ryan had found the letter accidentally while cleaning the living room. It had slipped from a stack of unopened mail and landed near his feet. At first he ignored it, but the bold red words caught his attention. Final notice: the house was at risk. He felt the ground shift beneath him as he read. Emily had been hiding their financial situation completely. She was weeks away from losing the only home they had left, the place filled with memories of his father. Ryan didn't panic. Instead, a strange calm settled over him. He made a decision now. Standing in the quiet kitchen, he carefully slid an envelope onto the counter beside his mother's purse. Inside, it was something that had taken him months to prepare. Something he had never told her about. He hesitated for a moment. Would she be angry? Maybe. But she would finally rest. Ryan turned off the light and walked back to his room, his heart racing with fear and hope mixed together. Morning came slowly. Emily woke to sunlight pressing through the curtains. For the first time in weeks, she realized she had slept deeply. No nightmares. No anxiety pulling her awake at dawn. It felt strange, almost peaceful. She stretched, then frowned when she noticed her purse sitting neatly on the bedside table. She was certain she had left it in the living room. Confused, she reached for it. Anne. Envelope slipped out and fell onto the blanket. Her name was written on the front in familiar handwriting. Mom. Emily smiled softly despite herself. Ryan rarely wrote notes anymore. Teenagers preferred texts and short replies. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a letter and a check. Her breath stopped. The amount written on the check was enough to cover 3 months of mortgage payments. Her hands began to shake. What? She read Ryan's letter quickly. Mom, I know things have been hard. I know you try to protect me, but I see everything. I've been working after school for months and saving. I also sold Dad's old motorcycle. I know it was hard, but he wouldn't want us to lose the house. Please don't be mad. I just want you to breathe again. Tears filled her eyes before she finished reading. She pressed the paper to her chest. Overwhelmed by emotion, pride, guilt, love, and heartbreak all at once. Her little boy wasn't little anymore. He had been carrying burdens she never meant for him to carry. Emily rushed out of bed and walked quickly toward Ryan's room. She knocked once before opening the door. He was already awake, sitting at his desk pretending to study. Though his nervous expression gave him away, their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Emily crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him tightly. You shouldn't have done this alone, she whispered, crying softly. Ryan hugged her back, relieved. You always do everything alone. I just wanted to help. She pulled away, holding his face in her hands. You're still a kid. He smiled gently. Not anymore, Mom. Those words stayed with her long after she left his room. Later that day, Emily couldn't focus at work. Her thoughts kept returning to the letter, to how much Ryan had grown without her noticing. Had grief blinded her? After Daniel died, she had promised herself she would stay strong for her son. Instead, Ryan had become strong for her. That realization both comforted and scared her. When her shift ended early, she decided to walk home instead of taking the bus. The cool autumn air cleared her mind as leaves crunched beneath her shoes as she turned onto her street. She noticed something unusual. A car she didn't recognize was parked outside her house. A tall man stood near the porch, looking uncertain. Holding a small box. Emily slowed. The man looked up as if sensing her presence. Their eyes met, and recognition flashed across his face. Emily, her heart skipped. She knew that voice. Mark. Mark Sullivan, Daniel's best friend. A man she hadn't seen since the funeral 3 years ago. He looked older, tired, but his smile carried the same warmth she remembered. "I wasn't sure you still lived here," he said awkwardly. Emily felt a swirl of emotions she wasn't prepared for. Mark had disappeared after Daniel's death, moving to Canada for work. Seeing him now felt like opening a door she had locked tightly. "What are you doing here?" she asked. He lifted the small box. "Something Daniel wanted you to have. I finally found the courage to bring it." Her chest tightened. Inside the house, Ryan watched quietly through the window. Sensing that this unexpected arrival might change everything again, Emily hesitated before inviting Mark inside. The air between them carried unfinished memories and unspoken feelings. As Mark stepped across the threshold, Emily felt something shift, not just in the house, but in her life. For the first time since losing Daniel, the future felt uncertain in a different way. Not frightening, just open. Mark placed the box on the table. "I think it's time you knew the truth," he said softly. Emily's heart began to race. Outside, the rain started again, gentle but steady, as if the world itself was preparing for what came next. And upstairs, Ryan realized that the change he started the night before was only the beginning, because whatever was inside that box was about to reveal a secret none of them were ready for. Emily stared at the box Mark had placed on the table. It was small, wooden, old, and clearly handled with care. She hesitated before lifting the lid. Inside were papers, photographs, and a folded envelope with her name on it in Daniel's handwriting. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "Daniel?" she whispered, voice cracking. She hadn't seen his handwriting in years, not since the funeral. Her chest tightened as she unfolded the letter. "Emily," it began, "if you're reading this, then I am gone. But I wanted you to have the truth before anything else. There are things I never told you, things I hoped would make your life easier someday. This is why I left certain accounts and why Mark knows more than anyone else. Trust him. He will guide you. Love always." Daniel. Tears blurred her vision as she looked up at Mark. He nodded gently, silently encouraging her to continue. Emily dug through the box, uncovering photographs of Daniel and Mark as young men. Daniel with a serious look she didn't remember, letters of business deals she had never been aware of. And finally, a set of keys with a note, "For emergencies. Always. Use wisely." Emily felt her heart pound. The letters hinted at financial safety nets, investments, and savings accounts that Daniel had quietly set up for her. And Ryan. Her hands shook as she realized that the stress she had endured for 3 years had been unnecessary. Daniel had thought. Ahead he had planned. Mark spoke softly, breaking the silence. "Daniel trusted you with so much more than you realized. He wanted you to have peace, not struggle. That's why I brought this tonight. And..." He paused. "I think he wanted me to remind you that you're not alone." Emily's chest tightened again. His words, calm and genuine, made something shift inside her. After all the nights she had felt invisible, after all the hours of exhaustion and loneliness, she suddenly felt seen, truly seen by someone who had known her long before grief had weighed her down. Ryan came downstairs quietly, holding a mug of hot chocolate he had made. He stood behind his mother, watching her carefully. Emily smiled faintly at him, still overwhelmed by the contents of the box. Ryan's eyes were bright with pride. "You're smiling," he said softly. "I didn't know if I could make you happy again." Emily turned to hug him tightly. "You've already done more than I ever imagined, Ryan. You've carried more than any child should. I'm so proud of you." Ryan leaned into her embrace, and for the first time in months, the house felt like home, not just a place, but a sanctuary of safety and love. Mark cleared his throat gently. "One more thing," he said, producing a small leather-bound notebook. He handed it to Emily. "Daniel wanted you to read this after you felt ready. I think now is the right time." Emily opened it carefully. The pages were filled with Daniel's thoughts, memories, and private letters he had written to her, but never sent. Every word was filled with love, regret, longing, and guidance. Some letters made her laugh, others made her cry. But all of them reminded her of the man she had loved. And the depth of his care for both her and Ryan. Hours passed as Emily read through every page, absorbing Daniel's words. Ryan sat nearby, watching his mother with quiet admiration, and Mark stayed close, patient and supportive, never intruding, but always present. By evening, the rain had stopped, leaving a crisp, cool night. Emily closed the notebook with a deep sigh. She felt lighter than she had in years, as if the weight of grief, stress, and fear had been lifted by Daniel's foresight and the care of the two people now by her side. Mark broke the quiet. "Emily, I don't want to overstep, but I've always cared about you." Even after all these years, Emily's heart skipped. She turned to him, searching his face for honesty. There was no pretense, no hesitation, only sincerity. She felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt since Daniel's funeral. Could she allow herself to feel something for Mark? Someone who had been part of her life for so long, but in a different way? I don't know," she whispered. Still learning how to breathe again without feeling guilty. "I'm not sure I even know how to feel anything without thinking of Daniel first." Mark nodded gently. "I know, and I would never want to replace him. But I can be here for you as a friend, a support, someone who cares. Let me help you find happiness again." Emily felt a tear slide down her cheek. But this time it was not only sorrow, it was relief, hope, and maybe the first flicker of love she had allowed herself to feel in years. Ryan, sensing the tension and emotion, cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe we should all have dinner together. It's been a long day." His words were simple, but they reminded Emily that life still moved forward, that she still had responsibilities, joys, and love to experience. Emily smiled through her tears. "Yes," she said softly. "Let's do that." They prepared a simple dinner together. Ryan chopped vegetables, Emily stirred the soup, and Mark set the table. The house smelled of warmth and comfort, of something Emily thought she had lost forever. During dinner, they shared small stories, laughed quietly, and talked about the future. Emily felt a connection forming between her and Mark, not the rushed, overwhelming kind, but a slow, steady warmth that grew stronger with each word, each glance, each shared memory. After dinner, Ryan excused himself to do homework. Emily and Mark remained in the living room, sitting closer than before, sharing stories of Daniel's quirks, adventures, and dreams. They laughed softly, sometimes pausing to reflect on the man they both had loved. Realizing that his memory didn't diminish their ability to move forward, it illuminated the path. As the clock ticked past 10, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. She looked at Mark, and he smiled gently, a hand hovering near hers. She hesitated, then placed her hand lightly on his. The touch was electric, comforting, and familiar all at once. Mark didn't move too fast. He simply held her hand, letting her feel in control. Emily felt her chest swell with emotions: gratitude, longing, hope, and something new. The possibility of love again. Ryan peeked in from the hallway, grinning. "Everything okay?" he asked innocently. Emily laughed softly, pulling her hand. from Mark's butt, keeping her smile warm. Yes, everything's perfect. That night, as Emily climbed into bed, she reflected on the day. A storm had passed both literally and metaphorically. She had discovered Daniel's hidden care, Ryan's courage and love, and even the possibility of new beginnings with Mark. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope for tomorrow. Ryan knocked softly on her door before leaving for his room. "Mom?" "Yes," she replied. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice full of meaning, "for letting me help. For letting me be part of the solution." Emily pulled him into a hug. "You've always been part of the solution, Ryan. You've always been my strength." He smiled, a quiet, contented smile, before heading to his room. Emily lay back on the pillow, heart full, eyes heavy with tears and sleep. She felt a gentle warmth in the room, knowing that the people she loved most were close by, and that life, even after loss, still had moments of magic, healing, and love. Outside, the moon shone brightly, casting silver light over the quiet house. Inside, Emily felt safe, hopeful, and ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold, because sometimes the hardest storms bring the most beautiful beginnings.